going to do this live on YouTube. Okay. So I thought I would share a few slides first, just to get, let's just start it off with questions or thoughts. Does anyone have any thoughts about what they experienced over the past 4 weeks as they've gone through the various sessions? Yeah, silence. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll share a few thoughts just to kick off what my reflections are in terms of what I thought about in terms of improving my health, improving my relationship with God. So I'm going to share my screen. Too much stuff open. It was in a different order when I opened this. There we go. Reflections. Okay. So, of course, the purpose of learning more about health is so that we can give God glory and honor, because he delights to show off his power in our lives. And it's all about wisdom and a love for God that drives this type of lifestyle change that we want to see in our lives and the lives of other people. And Jeremiah 9, verse 23 and 24 says, "Thus saith the Lord, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am the Lord, which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith the Lord." Amen. And so, sometimes we pursue healthy lifestyle so that we can get the better job, have disease-free living so that we can live comfortably and travel. A lot of different things may drive our desire for health, but God says, the best thing is to come into a greater knowledge and understanding of him, who he is, his loving kindness, his judgment, and his righteousness. And that will allow us to possess those characteristics and reflect those in our communities. And those are good characteristics, wouldn't you say?
Sure.
Loving kindness, judgment, righteousness in the earth. And then Psalms 111, verse 10 reminds us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all they that do his commandments. His praise endureth forever. And so as we seek wisdom in terms of understanding what are the best choices for me. For some people, they may say, well, there's certain foods that I'm not going to eat because that really doesn't agree with my system. Or there's certain exercises that I'm not going to engage in because I really find them unpleasant. Well, God will guide us in all of those little choices and the big choices. And it starts with a fear, meaning a respect, a reverence, and awe of who God is and how much he wants to be in relationship with us. And then Proverbs 1:7 reminds us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. And so as I thought about these past 4 weeks, I was like, wow, this is a lot of information. Some of it I already know, much of it I've heard before, but what am I doing with the information? Am I using it to make my community better, make myself better, or do I hate it because it's pointing out things that I really don't want to change at this time? And then, of course, the fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride, and arrogancy, and the evil way. And sometimes it's pride that might block me from making a lifestyle change. For example, I know I need to be getting more sleep, but I may think, well, I've got to get this other project done because that's setting me up for this next opportunity. And if I don't get that next opportunity, then what's my financial situation going to look like? Or whatever. What's my next collaboration going to look like? But as we embrace these lifestyle changes, we know that God has given us these principles for our own good. They're there for us to give him glory, but also to keep us happy and healthy. And then it allows, the fear of the Lord allows us to hate the evil way, meaning those bad choices that destroy us, rather than allowing our bodies to be such that we can say, behold your God. And that's what God wants to do. He wants his image perfectly reproduced in us. And so this is all part of the three angels' message, in Revelation 14, 6 and 7. We're called to give that message. And it says, "And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach. So when we embrace these lifestyle principles, it gives us the power to preach this everlasting gospel. And each one of us are called to give this message to the world, unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. What a mighty challenge God has given us. But as we embrace these lifestyle changes, we will have the energy, the mindset, and the power to do it. And what's the message we're supposed to give? Saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him. For the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of water. So as we worship him, we're called to worship him in spirit and in truth. So that means that we're going to be making those healthy lifestyle choices because that's what he's instructed us to do. And that's a form of worship. That's a form of praise. And
Mhm.
he says he wants to help us give him that praise and glory. And it's with a loud voice. It won't be in a little corner that we'll be, making these changes. We don't do it for ourselves. We do it so that we're able to more effectively serve Christ. And it's with a loud voice because when you start embracing these lifestyle changes, the effects are so dramatic. I mean, I remember one guy, he told me, he said, boy, if only I had known this information earlier. In fact, he was sort of angry with his doctor. He said, man, if I'd known that I didn't have to be taking these diabetes medications, I mean, exercise, cutting back on my portions, getting in bed early, making healthy food choices, fiber rich foods. He said, this is pretty easy compared to paying hundreds of dollars a month in medications. And to have the freedom to use that income that he was putting into other medications and visiting the doctors, his copays, he started shifting that into other avenues. So that's the power of embracing these lifestyle changes. And then, as a primary care physician, we have an obligation to really learn more about lifestyle and prescribe it. For example, physical activity. We know that physical activity is powerful. It boosts the brain hormones like, serotonin, the happy hormones. It helps lubricate joints. Arthritis improves. It helps boost helps lower blood pressure, helps boost your muscle sensitivity to insulin. So all these things are happening with just this one basic thing, physical activity, whether it be walking, gardening, jump roping, so many different ways to do it with so many different benefits. And we know that the life of the flesh is in the blood. So healthy blood produces healthy cells. And then my final thing, as I was thinking about, how they experienced this month of health, I thought about Abraham. And in Genesis 18, verse 19, it says, for I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. So as we keep his commandments, it allows, hopefully by God's grace, our households will embrace these lifestyle changes too. And it will allow us to keep the way of the Lord, but also to have an impact on the issues that are affecting our society, to do justice. We have a lot of issues in our community currently, but these principles allow us to do justice and judgment. And I think about the food insecurity issues that our communities are facing. It surged over the past several weeks as organizations, nonprofits have not been able to continue to provide the food services that they were providing because they've run out of funding. And also, people have lost jobs as a result of this corona pandemic. So, as we embrace these healthy lifestyles, you think about it. Um, for organizations that were giving out boxes of food, you know what they put in those boxes? They put in rice, beans, fruits, and veggies. And that made a pretty inexpensive box, but it was accessible they could give out more food by going with plants as opposed to more processed foods. So this will allow us to do justice, address these issues of food insecurity. And also, there are other issues too that we need to address, and we can't address them all. And then it says Abraham's household comprised more than 1,000 souls. Those who were led by his teachings to worship the one God found a home in his encampment. And here, as in a school, they receive such instruction as would prepare them to be representatives of the true faith. Thus, a great responsibility rested upon them. He was training heads of families, and his methods of government would be carried out in the households over which they should preside. So as we learn these health principles, we will be able to share them with other members in our home as well. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I didn't realize. I forgot I was in slide slow. Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. That are in our communities, and they will benefit from those same blessings that we've experienced. So these principles are not for us to just hoard them, but they're there for us to share so that we're representatives of the true faith. And so, the other thing I learned through this week is the importance of those moments of stillness, of rest. And rest is such an important piece. God wants us to rest in Him. He wants us to get adequate sleep. And I thought of all the different ways that God has built rest into our day through these health principles. One, if we have a regular exercise program every day, that puts a pause from the work because we got to go exercise, and ideally outdoors. Rest through Bible study and meditation. That puts another pause on the day. Rest through, if you have a prayer group, that puts another pause in the day. And if you have a time where you're doing some journaling, that puts another pause. So God has built in so many different pauses that we can have during the day. And we don't have to be saying, oh, I got to put time for relaxation. No, because God has already built that into our day. So this person said, I'm learning how to relax, doctor, but I want to relax better and faster. I want to be on the cutting edge of relaxation. Well, guess what? God's plan puts us on the cutting edge, and it's a reliable program. So we don't have to stay at our desk all day long. We don't have to keep on working all day long because God has not called us to do that. Instead, He's built in those points of rest throughout the day. So the days are coming, declares the sovereign Lord, when I will send a famine throughout the land, not of food or a thirst for water, but a famine of hearing the words of the Lord. Men will stagger from sea and wander from north to east, searching for the word of the Lord, but they will not find it. Are we hungry? Are we hungry for the word now? Because we need to be embedding it and having those right lifestyle principles allow our minds to be open and receptive to God's word and be empowered to share it with others. Because when that time comes, we're like, well, why didn't you share this with me? Why didn't you tell me? So we have an urgency. We have no time to lose. The end is near. The passage from place to place to spread the truth will soon be hedged with dangers on the right hand and on the left. Everything will be placed to obstruct the way of the Lord's messengers so that they will not be able to do that which it is possible for them to do now. We must look our work fairly in the face and advance as fast as possible in aggressive warfare. From the light given me of God, I know that the powers of darkness are working with intense energy from beneath, and with stealthy tread, Satan is advancing to take those who are now asleep, as a wolf takes his prey. We have warnings now which we may give, a work now which we may do, but soon it will be more difficult than we can imagine. God help us to keep in the channel of light, to work with our eyes fastened on Jesus, our leader, and patiently, perseveringly press on to gain the victory. So as we embrace these lifestyle changes, it's to help us to be effective in ministering. And so I thought about, food. So yeah, we know exercise helps us sleep better. It helps us gain more confidence. Going to bed helps us rest and have our minds clear. And then I thought about, well, are there some foods that also help with that melatonin? And of course there are. There's tomatoes, very high melatonin content. And the skin of grapes, people they say they drink wine to relax them. Well, guess what? The skin of grapes has a lot of melatonin too. So just eating grapes. And pistachios are a real champion for melatonin production. I remember one guy, he said he was depressed and he just started eating his pistachios every day along with his exercise. And he noticed a big improvement in his mood, and other foods too. And of course, getting out there, getting the sunlight. But then I also thought, as we thought about, foods to eat, inflammation, which was our first talk, is running throughout our body. That's like the fire or the rusting that occurs. Like if you put your bike outside, you leave it in the rain and you leave it there for months, it gets very rusty. Well, foods that have a high ORAC value, which ORAC is a measure of its antioxidant potential, optical resolution, absorption capacity, radical absorption capacity. They're foods that are really high. So you wonder why people say, oh, I got to get my blueberries. Well, blueberries have a very high ORAC value. So do raisins and prunes. I remember a guy that used to work with one of the big food companies. He said, oh, we use prune juice as a preservative. And the prune juice is added to things as a preservative because of its high antioxidant capacity, that it prevents decay. And then of course, the other way we prevent decay is by cutting back on what we're eating, because what we eat, digestion is a big process. And when people start cutting back on calories, they have less inflammation in the body. So you think about the Okinawans, who are among the longest living people on the earth. They eat 40% fewer calories than Americans and 17% fewer calories than the Japanese average. And we know that they get 80% fewer breast and prostate cancers, 50% fewer ovarian and colon cancers, and they have 50% fewer hip fractures. And they don't have dairy in there. They don't have a lot of dairy in their diet. And they have 80% fewer heart attacks. And the beauty of this is, when you think about these blue zones, of which Okinawa is just one of them, Loma Linda is also blue zone. And they see pockets of these same behaviors. Wherever you see these behaviors, you see this nice reduction in cancers and heart disease. And so the last one, I think this is my last slide, is thinking about spices also as a strategy for reducing inflammation. And I thought about Dr. Walsh's talk, where he talked about, the importance of ginger and turmeric and everything as a way to boost your anti-inflammatory capacity in your blood. Well, there's some other spices also that are powerhouses. And when you think of the Mediterranean diet, we hear a lot about the benefits of the Mediterranean diet for reducing heart attacks, reducing cancer, breast cancer. One study suggested it, reduces breast cancer. Well, one aspect of the Mediterranean diet, other than fish, because people often zoom in on the fish, are the spices. Sumac is a popular spice, and that ORAC value of 312,000 is much higher than any of the fruits and vegetables, much higher than the beans. And then, cinnamon, oregano has always been thought of as a powerhouse. Acai berry frozen, cumin seed, which of course is in curry. And then look at curry powder, 48,000 compared to sumac. And sumac is nice because you can sprinkle that over all sorts of things. You can sprinkle over cauliflower, over your beans. You can sprinkle it over just about anything, a raw salad even. Like if you go to a Mediterranean restaurant, that red powder that you see on top of the salad, that's sumac. And then melatonin. Of course, we know melatonin is important for sleep. It's important for fighting cancer, maybe. And if you follow the news on our president, when they talked about what they've given him, of course, they've given him the Regeneron infusion. They've given him some vitamin D. But they also said they gave him some melatonin. And of course, we make melatonin when we're outdoors. Our pineal gland gets exposed to the sun. And as our pineal gland is exposed to the sun, it converts serotonin into melatonin. And of course, certain foods are important for this melatonin production too, like tryptophan. Tryptophan is high in milk, but it's also high in beans and bananas and other foods. But the time you get to bed is important for when melatonin is released. So melatonin secretion starts to pick up like around 8 p.m. and then it really starts to surge around between 10 and 2 a.m. And then 3 a.m. it starts to taper down, and then by 7 a.m. it's reduced. So if you're not in bed with the lights out, nice darkness, then you're missing out on the benefits of getting that surge of melatonin. And the last one was about the omega-3s, because we know we learned a lot about plant-based diets in these presentations, but there are certain things that you have to be strategic and really be intentional in terms of including them. And that's the omega-3 fatty acids. And we know that those seem to be protective for the brain, preventing dementia, but also protective for the heart in terms of reducing the risk of having a heart attack. And Blacks often have a lower intake of omega-3s. Even if they're eating fish, they often are not eating the high omega-3 fats like salmon. So other plant sources of omega-3s include the flaxseed, 2 tablespoons ground has about 3.2 grams of omega-3. And of course, that's the ALA, alpha-linoleic acid. And the beans have some, and of course, dark green leafies also have some omega-3s. But be intentional. And one of our presenters talked about grinding up flaxseed, keeping that in the refrigerator so that you can just sprinkle it over different things. Walnuts, you can put those over different things. You can put them over salad, over vegetables. I mean, you can do a lot of different things with walnuts. So I'm gonna stop sharing my slide and just see whether anyone's willing to share what they learned in terms of things that they're doing differently. So for me, I'm aiming to get more sleep and aiming to get more exercise and more pauses in the day. And Ernst, you may want to turn it off from YouTube just so people feel more comfortable sharing.
Well, of course, I believe I mentioned to you some time ago that sleep was.
I think so. I got it.
Sleep is one of my challenge that I'm working on. I believe I am. The last time I believe when I took, I believe when the health truck was around, they did some they did some, I know, some type of test on me, and they said sleep is what what I need to do more. So that is something that I have to work on. I've been trying to kind of sleep earlier and wake up earlier. For instance, last night I went to bed with like 10:30, but by the time 3:45, I was up, man, and I couldn't go back to sleep. So
yeah.
So,
well, I mean, that's a powerful thing. And I know, I mean, like a lot of the people I work with, they're up by 4 a.m., you know, they do their little exercise routine, 4 to 5. They have their cup of coffee, they read the New York Times and get through a few things, and then they're off to the races. So, and they, of course, they're not necessarily going to bed early, but sleep is amazing. And especially for the mental health crisis that we're now having, sleep is critical, especially for our kids, to get them unplugged from their devices and allow them time to just wind down from the day. And all the screen time that they now have as opposed, you know, as just a normal part of their classroom routine. It's a lot more screen time.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the thing is that I have challenges going to bed early. This basically, but the thing is, even if I go to bed late, I still wake up early. Yeah. You know, so it is really tough. But there's something I'm working on. I mean, Friday night is like the night that I really kind of go in the earliest, like between 10 and 10:30, I go into bed, and of course by time 4:30 or something like that, I am up. But it's getting to bed early during the week, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a challenge, and I love the data on, you know, blind women out of one study that showed that they had like a 40% reduction in breast cancer, you know, and they think it's just because of the darkness that they get this great melatonin, and they have high melatonin levels. So those studies really suggest that melatonin, and of course we need interventional studies, those are observational studies, but the observational studies are very suggestive that the sleep and the darkness is important.
Well, I will ask you to counsel with my wife, because she likes light, and I love darkness in the night. No, really, truly, even the little lights, I love it to be dark.
Yeah.
But she likes light, man. I have to get up and turn off the light on her side and all kind of stuff. That's
a challenge. And the same thing with the elderly who want to have these night lights. And
this night lights and so on, you know. So I don't know. I believe she's on, so I will arrange a counseling session with her so you can talk to her about the light in the night.
Yeah. Paulette, can you hear me? No, I guess not.
Yeah, I'm hearing you, Rhoda.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the flax seed. Because because I had that breast cancer. I remember this. What her name? The people who specialize in cancer. What you call them? I forgot the name now. Oh,
Oncologist.
oncology. Thank you. I shouldn't take flax seed.
Seed. Okay.
Is that true, Paulette?
Paulette, you there? Like Paulette went off the rail.
Oh, she the one I'm asking my question because used to have flaxseed in my breakfast and everything. Because the woman told me to no, don't take it because she said there's something in it that can cause the cancer to come back. That's what she told me. So
Wow.
I stopped. Yeah, that was it. So I've been wanting to ask whether that was true or not. But
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, she Paulette, you there? Wow.
Yeah, so the woman frightened the life out of me.
All right. Well, you'll have to hold your question then until,
Yeah.
because I don't want to give you wrong information.
No, please don't, Pastor. No, Pastor, you're not a doctor.
I know.
Here I am again. Sorry.
Oh,
I
yes,
realized
yes. Okay,
my battery was low.
okay.
But yeah,
Go ahead.
Monray told me that you were asking you had a question or concern about the oncologist telling you not to use flaxseed
Seed.
because of the estrogen content in flaxseed. And we don't know whether the estrogen content in flaxseed, because it is a phytoestrogen, whether that increases the risk of breast cancer once you have it. We do know, though, that people that have a high intake of plant estrogens before the diagnosis of breast cancer, before, those that use high plant estrogens, they have a much greater reduction in risk of developing breast cancer. And we have that data in American women as well as Asian women, because people always say, oh yeah, that may be true for Asians, but is it true for Americans? And there's a Long Island breast cancer study where they looked at the Long Island study. They enrolled women and they said, okay, let's follow the diets of these women and see who gets breast cancer and who doesn't get breast cancer. And those that had high intake of phytoestrogen, they were much less likely to get breast cancer. We do have that. So if you go to Washington University, Graham Kolditz, who's head of public health there, he has a beautiful handout, a brochure that he's done called The 8 Ways to Prevent Breast Cancer. Start now. And those 8 principles include 1, daily exercise, 2, high fresh fruit and vegetable content, 3, plant estrogens, phytoestrogens, 4, avoid, limit dairy, 5, increase legume intake, and there are a couple of others, but the phytoestrogen, that's one of his strategies. And that's for prevention. Now, of course, prevention versus primary prevention, meaning the aspect of preventing a cancer before you get it the first time versus preventing a recurrence, that's a whole different ballgame. And of course, tamoxifen, which is commonly used to prevent recurrence of breast cancer, is that is a type of estrogen, tamoxifen. And the PEPI trial, which was the big trial in women that looked at hormone replacement therapy for prevention of cardiovascular disease. And that study showed that the women in the estrogen arm actually had about a 40% reduction in breast cancer. The women in the estrogen, and that is a study that actually led to the development of tamoxifen as a treatment. And that was a secondary analysis. And so people are like, okay, well, let's see what the cancers are doing here. So those women that had estrogen and progesterone, because those are women that had a uterus, because if you give estrogen and you have a uterus, you can get, uterine cancer or endometrial cancer. Those women with the estrogen and progesterone combination, they did not see that benefit of estrogen. So estrogen actually reduced breast cancer in that big study. I mean, it's like over 100,000 women that were in that study. So secondary prevention, that's a different ball game. And if your doctor is telling you to limit phytoestrogens, then limit them.
Okay.
And then, that's